So if you were wondering how I was able to get Neptune to do exactly that, come out on his own and be able to handle him, then this is the video for you. Keep on watching. So I have Neptune out here. I'm going to be going over some different ways that you can work on building trust with your chameleons so that you are able to handle them. Neptune's not the biggest fan of being handled. We do it like just as needed, and I'm more of his transportation device from his enclosure to his tree. But it's a good skill to have in case I need to take him to the vet or inspect him to make sure he's healthy and nothing's wrong. So being able to handle your chameleon is important as a chameleon keeper. If you're looking for a pet that you can handle all the time or snuggle or cuddle with, a chameleon's not the pet for you. Chameleons generally don't like to be handled. It's something that they tolerate more so than anything else, so just keep that in mind if you're considering getting a chameleon as a pet. The first piece of advice that I can give you to make your chameleon tolerate handling is to be patient. It took 5 months of consistently working with Neptune, doing some tips and tricks that I'll cover with you guys before he came out on his own. So just be patient. It may take less time, it may take more time. You know, maybe your chameleon won't ever be comfortable with being handled, so just keep that in mind. The second piece of advice I can give you is to work at your chameleon's pace. Every chameleon's going to be different, but I never force Neptune to come out, or any of my chameleons for that matter. I don't rush them. I pay attention to their body language. I have a whole video on 5 signs of a defensive chameleon, so I'll link that up above here. Neptune's gonna freak out on me if I move too much. You're okay. You're okay. 5 signs of a defensive chameleon. So being able to understand your chameleon's body language is super important. So that way you don't make them uncomfortable or stress them out unnecessarily. Another piece of advice is if your chameleon is showing signs of becoming defensive, so as you can see right now, Neptune's kind of a little puffy, he's bringing his arm up close to his body. So these are beginning signs of him being a little bit defensive, but I've spent a lot of time with him and I know that he's okay. If you're approaching your chameleon and they're showing signs of becoming defensive, whether they're puffing their chin or doing the T-Rex arm, then just stay where you're at. Don't approach your chameleon any further. Leave your hand where it is and allow your chameleon to calm down. The whole point is your chameleon is trying to make sure that you're not going to eat them. That's the whole point. You're just building trust. If you pull away when your chameleon starts to get defensive, then that's just rewarding the behavior. That means to the chameleon, if I puff up and if I start gaping or hissing or whatever, then my owner is going to back away. You want to respect the chameleon's boundaries, but at the same time, you want them to trust you and understand that you're not a threat. So as soon as your chameleon starts showing signs of becoming defensive, just leave your hand there in a safe distance. You know, if they're about to bite you, that's a different story, but you can just leave your hand there and wait for them to calm down and they understand that you're not a threat. Another way you can help your chameleon be comfortable with handling is to feed them treats. Hornworms and superworms are popular favorites. You can start just by feeding these worms on occasion and then they can associate them as a treat. You can then tongue feed them or hand feed them, so then they're associating the yummy food with you. Then you can work the worm up to maybe your arm, so then your chameleon has to reach a little further to get to the worm, and then slowly move the worm further up your body to perhaps your elbow. So then they have to step onto your hand in order to get the treat. This is what worked for Neptune. I was wearing a long sleeve shirt because I didn't want to touch the worm, and it actually stuck to my shirt. Do you want a hand? Yeah, there you go. And so then Neptune accidentally walked onto me because the worm was stuck to my shirt. You're okay. You're good. So hornworms were the trick for Neptune. That's how I got him out the first time. I held my hand out for 20 minutes and eventually came out with the hornworm. So giving them treats is a great way to get them to associate with you with a positive experience. Another thing you can do is free range them. You good? You can just put a tree or a plant by their enclosure and leave their enclosure open and just hang out with their enclosure open, so they're just able to observe you. and associate you with a positive experience. Free ranging is what worked with Neptune to come out on his enclosure and start to explore, and then hornworms is what worked for me to get him to come out onto me. You're okay. You're doing great. So some things to keep in mind when you're handling your chameleon. As you can see, I'm keeping an open palm, open fingers. These are kind of like branches for Neptune to grab onto. I'm just letting him hand walk at his own pace. He's just kind of chilling out right now, but you can just give them like a little hand treadmill. The number one thing you shouldn't do is to come up from up above. So if I were to reach above Neptune, he would puff, gape, hiss, and totally freak out. I'm not gonna do it because I know it'll stress him out. The reason for this is because birds are predators for chameleons in the wild, so they'll come up above. So it's a super scary threat for a chameleon, so always come down below. Never grab your chameleon. They're very fragile. Their bones are fragile and they're easily broken, so never grab your chameleon. Let them walk onto you. If you need to, you can kind of scoop them from underneath, but never grab them, and never pry their feet off of you. Hopefully you found some of these tips and tricks helpful. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe so you know when I post a new video. You can follow Neptune and my other chameleons on Instagram at Neptune the Chameleon. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Say bye, Neptune. Say bye to the camera. Say bye to YouTube. Bye, YouTube. My arm is getting real tired.